New deal in pact between Microsoft and OpenAI. It's a new stake in OpenAI's PBC.
We knew that a memorandum of understanding had been signed and the details are getting close for this public benefit corporation. That's the PBC bit. Ultimately, OpenAI is forming. It wants to be a for-profit business. It was founded as a not-for-profit. The not-for-profit will still oversee OpenAI's public benefit corporation, and now we try and work out who has stakes in what. We understand Microsoft has a $135 billion overall valuation.
The world of artificial intelligence just witnessed another seismic shift. What seemed like a simple corporate partnership has now turned into one of the most powerful alliances in tech history. Microsoft and OpenAI have taken their collaboration to an entirely new level, and no one saw it coming. At the heart of it all stands Sam Altman, the face of OpenAI and arguably one of the most influential figures in technology today. During a recent discussion, Altman revealed details that are reshaping how the AI industry thinks about power, literally. He shared that OpenAI has now finalized new commercial agreements with Microsoft, expanding both their partnership and Microsoft's influence inside OpenAI itself. This deal solidifies Microsoft's position as the single largest shareholder in the company, holding a 27% equity stake. That's a massive leap, and it means one thing: Microsoft now has deeper control over the future of AI than ever before. To put it into perspective, Microsoft originally invested $13 billion into OpenAI today. That investment has ballooned into an astonishing $135 billion valuation. That's not just a good return. It's one of the most impressive success stories in modern tech history. But this move isn't only about profit. It's about control. It's about who leads the next era of intelligence. And right now, it seems like Microsoft has positioned itself perfectly at the center of that revolution. While everyone's been focused on ChatGPT updates and AI chips, a quieter story has been unfolding, one that involves energy, infrastructure, and the future of AI scalability. During a live stream following the deal announcement, Altman discussed something extraordinary. He revealed that OpenAI has committed to 33 gigawatts of compute capacity, a level of infrastructure that would require the equivalent energy of 33 nuclear reactors, or enough power to support 25 million homes. That's not just ambitious, it's unprecedented. Altman explained that building this kind of power base could cost around $50 billion per gigawatt today, but his goal is to bring that cost down to $20 billion. He's not just talking about running AI systems. He's talking about building an entirely new global energy foundation for artificial intelligence. But here's the twist. Sam Altman doesn't build power plants, at least not yet. What he does have is partnerships, lots of them. He's working with Broadcom, AMD, and NVIDIA to diversify chip production and ensure OpenAI has access to the world's most powerful computing hardware. And now, with Microsoft's backing, those ambitions suddenly look a lot more realistic.
Ownership of the public benefit corporation. That's bigger than OpenAI's. We understand a few months back, Brett Taylor, the chairman of OpenAI, put out a statement. Overall philanthropic arm of OpenAI would hold a $100 billion valuation stake in the public benefit corporation. But remember, they've raised money from there. They will get a stake in this PBC, as it's known. But what's interesting is that OpenAI has still got a contractual obligation to buy Azure, to buy cloud from Microsoft going forward, $250 billion worth of Azure services. But this is also talking about how once AGI, once artificial general intelligence, whatever form we decide that that is made, what happens then? Because this was always the deal between Microsoft and OpenAI. When Microsoft first pumped money into the company, they would have exclusive rights to OpenAI's overall IP until AGI was hit. Well, now we start to understand really what's going to happen in it. And they say Microsoft retains IP rights, intellectual property rights, Azure API exclusivity until AGI. OpenAI can now jointly develop some products with third parties. You've already seen that happening. OpenAI was starting able to get cloud from others, or like Google, because they couldn't just get enough cloud from Microsoft. Microsoft, in turn, is starting to offer Anthropic within the overall Copilot offering, not just OpenAI. New terms of the deal, we knew this was coming, and this is a forward-looking relationship, and that's why there's such a sigh of relief, because many had wondered what on earth would happen. OpenAI did indeed solidify that public benefit corporation angle.
OpenAI has already opened a call to infrastructure providers across North America. More than 800 bids have been submitted from energy companies hoping to power the next generation of AI data centers. This isn't just about software anymore. It's about hardware, energy, and the physical footprint of intelligence itself. Meanwhile, competitors like NVIDIA, Google, and Amazon are all racing to secure their place in this new digital arms race. NVIDIA has been investing heavily in self-driving startups and even other chip rivals like Intel. Pouring billions into every corner of the AI ecosystem, Google has its in-house TPU chips, while Amazon is developing its own AI silicon to compete head-on. It's no longer just an AI arms race. It's a power race, a money race, and a PR race. Each company is fighting not only for technological dominance, but also for the confidence of investors. Every time a company like NVIDIA, AMD, or Broadcom announces even a small partnership with OpenAI, their stock prices skyrocket. That's how powerful the OpenAI effect has become. And now, with Microsoft holding such a dominant stake, its ripple effect across the market is massive. But this new agreement also raises questions. If Microsoft owns such a large portion of OpenAI, who truly leads the company's direction? Altman may be the visionary behind its mission, but Microsoft holds the infrastructure, the cloud access, and the financial muscle that fuels OpenAI's operations. In many ways, this partnership has blurred the lines between where OpenAI ends and where Microsoft begins. It's no longer just a collaboration. It's a merger of power, influence, and ambition. Industry analysts are already calling this move a masterstroke by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. He's managed to turn what was once a risky investment into a near monopoly on generative AI infrastructure. Azure now powers the vast majority of OpenAI's compute operations, meaning every ChatGPT prompt and DALL-E image runs through Microsoft's cloud network. Meanwhile, Altman's focus on scaling energy and compute shows that OpenAI isn't slowing down. He's not just thinking about GPT-5 or GPT-6. He's preparing for a future where AI requires its own energy grid to survive. Some critics, however, are raising concerns. Can one company, especially one backed so heavily by Microsoft, really control the infrastructure behind artificial intelligence without creating a new kind of monopoly? And what happens when energy itself becomes the biggest bottleneck in the AI revolution? Even Altman admits the challenge is daunting. But if there's one thing he's known for, it's doing what others think is impossible. From building ChatGPT into a household name to transforming OpenAI from a non-profit lab into a global juggernaut, Altman has consistently redefined what AI can be.
Kenzie, we'll get to the Amazon stuff, get to the OpenAI stuff, because they made some comments about energy as well. But as somebody who covers this stuff every single day.
Latest example of NVIDIA leaning into this tech conglomerate playbook. Think about some of the investments they've made lately. $100 billion into OpenAI over the next few years, $5 billion into their rival Intel, but also taking a $500 million stake in a self-driverless car startup, really expanding the scope of what their business model is. And with NVIDIA, they've now got new rivals in the chip business. Google has their TPU, their in-house silicon.
When I woke up this morning and turned on CNBC and watched Jim and David and others talking on Squawk on the Street, I saw Lisa Su of Advanced Micro Device. I knew that Jensen was giving a speech today at the NVIDIA Developers Conference or GPU conference in D.C. This is not just an AI arms race, it's a PR arms race. It's a money race, right? All these companies, in many ways, competing for the same investor dollar, I think. Yes or no?
I mean, they're all looking to capture part of that OpenAI halo. You mentioned AMD and Broadcom. Think about the kind of price surges we've seen in the public markets off the back of a single announcement about a relationship with OpenAI that's forming, whether that's equity stake or commitment to build new compute.
Yeah, I mean, we had one with Nokia today. NVIDIA takes a stake in Nokia. We haven't talked about Nokia.
Yeah.
Pretty much at the same time this occurred, Sam Altman of OpenAI, I guess he's probably the most powerful man in technology in America, if it's not Jensen Huang, making comments about building out the power base, something we talked about with Interior Secretary Burgum moments ago. I know you were here.
Live stream, and it was off the back of the news that they've finalized terms of their commercial agreement with Microsoft, but the conversation veered towards his infrastructure and things. So one, they've committed to 33 gigawatts of compute, and the best way to think about that is each gigawatt is what the equivalent of one nuclear reactor, 750,000 homes. And what he said is that the industry standard today is $50 billion roughly to build out a gigawatt of compute.
Yes.
He wants to get it down to 20 billion.
And Sam Altman, to me, and you don't have to comment on this, he's making comments about energy, which are great. He recognizes the demand for energy, which is great. Anybody pushing back on this and saying, well, is this possible? Because that's not something that's necessarily in his control. All due respect to Sam Altman, power plants, at least not yet.
He's getting into the business of building chips with Broadcom.
Okay.
They signed a $10 billion deal there. He's diversifying his chip exposure with AMD. We'll see if they ultimately decide to sign with AWS, but he's controlling what he can control. And so he's also had this open call to infrastructure providers across North America to offer him a mix of power sources to make this reality.
Did you say ultimately or ultimately? Because I feel like it's it might be Sam ultimately. If he can actually now control energy very quickly. OpenAI had a restructuring.
Yes.
It involves Microsoft. I'm not going to pretend to understand what the story is.
So we finalized terms of both their commercial agreement and then also Microsoft's equity stake. That's 27%, largest single shareholder in the company. The stake is worth $135 billion. They invested $13 billion into OpenAI. That's a pretty impressive return over that space of time. A lot of IP rights and that 20% revenue share. So a lot of wins for Microsoft here.
They can be a for-profit business, but they're a public benefit corporation is what they're turning into. The whole raison d'etre of OpenAI was to build artificial general intelligence, but for the good of humanity.
Yeah,
That's
right.
why initially it was a not-for-profit. They realized they needed a ton of money to be able to access the compute to build AGI, and therefore the awkwardness began. Microsoft, back in the day, 2019, started to OpenAI as its #1 shareholder. Now, they have had the sticking point of why OpenAI hasn't been able to convert to a for-profit, because it needed to square away the deal with Microsoft. The deal is squared away. It seems as though Microsoft's going to be getting a $135 billion stake. Now, last time we checked, a month or so ago, when the chairman of OpenAI said a memorandum of understanding was being drafted, Brett Taylor said OpenAI will have a $100 billion stake. So Microsoft has more of a stake in the public benefit corporation than the philanthropic endeavor of OpenAI.
The 6 and the 20 companies around them adapt to this bombshell, seminal announcement of don't be evil.
Bring us back the history of Microsoft being the biggest shareholder in OpenAI. For a while, it looked like that relationship was kind of falling apart. And now it seems like they're all good again.
More freedom. And already that has started to happen because basically Microsoft doesn't have enough supply of compute. So OpenAI had already gone out there. Larry Ellis has certainly been able to take more money, private capital in from Thrive Capital here in New York based. We also know that they've been going for money from strategic investors, such as SoftBank, for example, started to become a #1 key holder as well. We know that Microsoft will hold 27% of the public benefit corporation.
And nobody has any clue who's going to buy them or where, Apple rumored, etc. What's it mean for the other players as they jockey around these behemoths?
Still means that OpenAI now has more freedom potentially to be putting and getting cloud resources from others. Number in here, 250 billion in incremental Azure services is what OpenAI is contracted to purchase from Microsoft.
This is financing.
250 billion OpenAI has to, in the forward amounts of time, we don't know exactly how long they've got to. No longer will Microsoft get first right or refusal. OpenAI can go and get its compute from wherever it likes, but in the longer term, it has to spend $250 billion with Microsoft. When you're thinking about $1 trillion is how much we think infrastructure is going to cost.
Microsoft are a bit lower. Unclear whether, in fact, that's due to this latest story in the Wall Street Journal. Sort of details, well, I guess what would have to be considered tension between the two parties who have been partners for, of course, quite some time. Microsoft providing so much of the initial capital allowed for the compute that allowed OpenAI to create and get ChatGPT going. Apparently, a number of the hot buttons, they're not necessarily about, as it transitions to this public benefit corporation, what's Microsoft's ownership going to be? Not unimportant, but hot buttons are more about who gets which IP when, and the exclusivity to it. And that, of course, was an important. Microsoft obviously granted that exclusivity. But things about coding or products or when they reach, if they ever do, so-called AGI. You know, what can you use and when? What does Microsoft get? What don't they? What is ChatGPT going to be able to bring to the market without having to worry about Microsoft? That certainly is trying to work through right now, is my understanding. And it's not easy. Not easy, as you might expect.
Is there a possibility they could break up?
You know, I haven't heard that. It's certainly they're certainly moving further apart. And if they do succeed in this capital restructuring, you know, that'll be another sort of move potentially apart. But the hope is they can resolve where things stand in terms of the IP activity and when. But they are still in the midst, of course, of creating that new capital stack, so to speak, as we say, as they potentially transition to benefit corporation, which will have an impact on existing shareholders and on Microsoft and SoftBank as well. The money that went in there is deposited to a certain extent in terms of how it's treated in the capital structure. So no shortage of complexity.
Microsoft and OpenAI reached a deal to allow the ChatGPT maker to restructure itself into a public benefit corporation. It values OpenAI at $500 billion and gives it more freedom in its business operations. With more than 700 million weekly of September, ChatGPT has exploded in popularity to become the face of AI for many consumers. The deal removes a major concern that has existed since 2019, when it signed a deal with Microsoft that gave the tech giant rights over much of OpenAI's work carried out. As ChatGPT attracted more and more users, those limitations became a notable source of tension between the two companies. OpenAI spokesperson said CEO Sam Altman will not get equity in the restructured company, in a reversal from discussions last year that the company has no plans to focus on a potential public offering. Microsoft will still hold a stake of about $135 billion, 27% in the OpenAI group, which will be controlled by the nonprofit OpenAI Foundation. $500 billion valuation for OpenAI implied that Microsoft had generated a return of nearly 10 times its investment. Microsoft shares rose as much as 4% Tuesday morning, sending its market value above $4 trillion again. An issue of OpenAI being organized as a not-for-profit and settles the ownership rights of the technology vis-a-vis Microsoft. Should provide more clarity on OpenAI's investment path, thus facilitating further fundraising. Said on Tuesday it entered into a deal with OpenAI that will allow ChatGPT users to buy products using the payment firm's platform. PayPal shares up nearly 13% Tuesday morning. PayPal said the integration of its platform with OpenAI will make millions of products discoverable and purchasable through ChatGPT.
OpenAI has officially restructured into a for-profit company that will be controlled by its non-profit arm. ChatGPT maker was able to make this move after striking a deal with Microsoft, which is its largest investor. Microsoft now holds a 27% share in OpenAI. That's the for-profit arm. The non-profit OpenAI Foundation will hold 26%. Current and former employees and investors make up. Why is OpenAI making this decision? I guess experts weren't surprised.
Yeah.
Why are they doing it, and what does it mean for the rest of us?
Microsoft is the original and most important investor in OpenAI, and they had a deal going back to 2019, allowed the development of OpenAI to progress in a certain direction and for Microsoft to have an interest in it. Over time, now OpenAI has become a much larger company, a much more important company, arguably one of the most important companies in the world. We need to pursue the future of AI, and especially AGI, or artificial general intelligence, in a certain way. Microsoft also wants to pursue it in a certain way, and they needed to revise the original terms of their agreement to do it.
Now, the general intelligence concept is fascinating to me. Technology is now built on the backbone of OpenAI. This is a system that scrapes available information on the web and tries to regurgitate it to us conversationally, but it doesn't really think. It's not really intelligent the way we think. So how does this get the company closer to general intelligence?
It's more like PhD level intelligence, having been able to have a conversation with a PhD level expert. What they want to do is they want to pursue AGI in the ways that are most available to them based on computing power. This agreement allows Microsoft and OpenAI to pursue that a little bit separately. Also, the original agreement had this one little asterisk that power AI. Until it became clear that they had achieved AGI. Then it no longer had rights to them. This agreement changes that. It says that once OpenAI declares it's reached AGI, which is really a marketing term and not a technical term, we should be clear, by an independent board of experts. And Microsoft still gets access through 2032 with this agreement, even if OpenAI declares. That's an important thing that they needed to get through.
So they had to wiggle through some new fine print.
They did.
It's still changing the way we do just about everything, so I appreciate
Yes.
Now, with Microsoft by his side and billions in infrastructure on the line, he's taking that mission to the next level. Behind the scenes, this new OpenAI Microsoft deal represents a complete restructuring of power within Silicon Valley. It cements Microsoft not just as a tech company, but as the foundation of modern artificial intelligence, a company that owns the servers, the chips, and now, even a major piece of the brains running on them. And for OpenAI, it's a chance to move faster than ever, expanding its reach, accelerating its research, and reshaping industries along the way. From healthcare and education to defense and finance, the ripple effects of this alliance will be felt everywhere. This isn't the first time two tech giants have joined forces, but it might be the most consequential. Because unlike past partnerships, this one doesn't just aim to build better products. It's about shaping the very fabric of intelligence itself. Microsoft's massive stake, OpenAI's infrastructure expansion, and the race to control energy all point toward one truth. We're entering a new era of AI dominance, and it's being led by a handful of companies powerful enough to rewrite the rules. As one analyst put it, this isn't just a partnership, it's the beginning of an empire. And if history has taught us anything, it's that empires built on technology can change the world forever.